What would you do if you saw a family struggling on the street? For Barron Trump, the answer was clear. In a moment that no one saw coming, the son of a former president stepped out of his comfort zone and into the lives of complete strangers. But it wasn't just what Barron did that day that left people speechless. It was the profound impact his actions had on both the migrant family and himself. As we uncover the details of this unexpected encounter, you'll witness a transformation that challenges everything you thought you knew about privilege, compassion, and the power of a single act of kindness. The sun-drenched streets of Washington, D.C. stretched before Barron Trump, promising a peaceful afternoon stroll. As the youngest son of a former president, he was used to public scrutiny. Yet today he felt a rare sense of freedom. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves. Rounding a corner, Barron's eyes fell upon a sight that made him pause. A family huddled on the sidewalk, surrounded by worn bags. Their faces etched with exhaustion, they struggled with their belongings. The contrast between Barron's privileged life and their hardship hit him hard. His heart raced as he debated whether to approach. The weight of his upbringing pressed on his conscience. What would critics say if he intervened? How would the media twist this? A memory surfaced. His mother's voice echoed. Sometimes, Barron, the right thing isn't the easy thing, but it's in those moments that we define who we are. The family's youngest child stumbled, nearly dropping a bag. Before he could second-guess himself, Barron approached. "Can I help you with those?" he asked, gesturing to their bags. After a moment of surprise, the father nodded gratefully. Barron hefted the heaviest bags, noticing their frayed edges and careful patches. These held all their possessions, forcing him to confront a reality he'd only seen from afar. As they walked, Barron learned they were migrants seeking a better life. With each block, barriers crumbled. He saw the father's determination, the mother's love, the children's innocence. Their initial wariness gave way to warmth. Nearing their destination, Barron felt compelled to do more. He pulled out a gift card from his pocket. "Please," he said softly, pressing it into the mother's hand. "Take this. I hope it helps." As Barron handed over the gift card, the world seemed to pause. The mother's trembling fingers grasped the plastic rectangle, her eyes widening in disbelief. The father's weathered face softened, his stoic demeanor cracking under the weight of gratitude. Their children, sensing the shift, looked up with a mixture of curiosity and hope. Barron swallowed hard, fighting the lump in his throat. The intensity of emotion radiating from this family caught him off guard. Their reaction spoke volumes about the hardships they had faced, the countless doors that had been closed in their faces. "Gracias," the mother whispered, her voice barely audible. Tears welled up in her eyes, threatening to spill over. The father placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, his own eyes glistening. The youngest child tugged at Barron's sleeve. "Are you an angel?" she asked in halting English, her voice filled with wonder. Barron knelt down, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "No, I'm just someone who wanted to help." As they walked together, the father began to share their story. The perilous journey across borders, the nights spent in fear and uncertainty, the unwavering hope for a better future. With each word, Barron felt his perspective shifting, his world expanding beyond the confines of his privileged upbringing. They passed gleaming storefronts and bustling cafes, the contrast between the family's circumstances and the city's abundance growing starker with each step. Barron found himself noticing details he had previously overlooked, the wary glances cast at the family by passers-by, the subtle ways in which they were made to feel unwelcome. As they approached the shelter, a nondescript building that held the hopes and fears of countless families, Barron felt a growing sense of unease. The realization that this family's struggles were far from over weighed heavily on him. He wanted to do more, to somehow ensure their safety and success. The father turned to Barron, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "Thank you," he said, his accent thick but his sincerity unmistakable. "You have given us more than just help. You have given us hope." Barron watched as the family gathered their belongings, preparing to enter the shelter. He made a silent promise to himself. This wouldn't be the end. He would find ways to continue helping, to use his privilege and position to make a difference. The world may see him as just another child of wealth and power, but today had shown him the potential for so much more. As the shelter's doors closed, Barron stood rooted to the spot, his mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of the family's bags lingered in his muscles, a physical reminder of their daily burden. This brief glimpse into their world had opened his eyes to a reality he'd only seen from afar. Barron's gaze swept across the bustling street, taking in the stark contrast between gleaming storefronts and the worn-down shelter. A businessman hurried past, oblivious to the struggles happening behind those walls. How many times had Barron himself walked these streets, blind to the hardships around him? The father's calloused hands, the mother's protective stance, and the children's resilience flashed through Barron's mind. These weren't faceless statistics, but real people with dreams and fears. As he stood there, Barron felt a shift within himself. The world he'd known, with its comfortable certainties, began to blur at the edges. A passerby bumped into him, jolting Barron from his thoughts. The man's eyes widened in recognition, and for a moment Barron saw himself through the stranger's eyes, a privileged teen, out of place in this part of town. But that wasn't the whole story anymore. Barron's heart raced as an idea took shape. Could he use his unique position to bridge these two worlds? He thought about the media attention that followed him, the power of his family's name. How could he transform this moment into meaningful action? He recalled a statistic. In 2015, the U.S. had resettled nearly 70,000 refugees. That number had dropped in recent years. But what if public opinion was shifting again? Barron's fingers itched to grab his phone, to start researching organizations that could help. But he hesitated, realizing that true change required more than grand gestures. He thought about the gift card he'd given the family. It was a start, but not enough. What they needed was a support system, opportunities, and a chance to build a new life. This required more than just one person's effort, no matter how influential. As Barron finally turned to leave, his steps felt different. Lighter, despite the weight of his new resolve. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with skeptics and critics, but the image of that family's grateful faces would fuel him forward. Barron Trump had entered that street as a son of privilege, known more for his last name than his actions. He left as someone determined to make a difference through understanding and sustained effort. The world might see him as just another child of wealth and power, but today had revealed the potential for so much more, a bridge between two worlds and a catalyst for change in a divided society. As Barron walked away from the shelter, his steps echoed with newfound purpose. The bustling city around him seemed different now, alive with untold stories and hidden struggles. His encounter with the migrant family had opened his eyes, but it was just the beginning. How many others were out there, fighting silent battles, their voices unheard? The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Barron's phone buzzed in his pocket, but he ignored it, his mind racing with possibilities and questions. At a crosswalk, his gaze fell on a small group huddled near a convenience store. Their weary faces and cautious glances told a familiar tale. Barron's heart quickened as he passed, wondering about their stories and struggles. He recalled a sobering statistic. In 2015, the U.S. had resettled nearly 70,000 refugees, but those numbers had plummeted in recent years. What had happened to all those families, those dreams? A colorful flyer caught his eye, plastered on a community board. Refugee Support Network. Volunteers needed. Barron stopped short, his heart pounding. Here was something tangible, a way to channel his newfound determination into action. He realized that refugee assistance wasn't solely the government's responsibility. The most effective solutions arose when public policy and grassroots efforts joined forces. What untapped potential lay dormant in the intersection of these two worlds? Barron's fingers itched to start researching and reaching out, but he hesitated, remembering the look in the migrant father's eyes. This wasn't about grand gestures or quick fixes. It was about sustained effort, about truly understanding the challenges these families faced. As dusk settled in, Barron passed a group of teenagers, laughing and carefree. He wondered if they had any idea of the struggles happening just a few blocks away. How could he bridge that gap, make people see beyond their own comfortable bubbles? Nearing home, Barron felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be skeptics, critics who would question his motives or dismiss his efforts. But the image of those grateful faces, the feeling of connection he'd experienced, would fuel him forward. Barron's mind raced with possibilities as he approached his front door. He had a decision to make, one that could change not only his life, but the lives of countless others. With a deep breath, he reached for the doorknob, ready to take the first step on this new journey. Barron stood before the imposing Trump residence, his mind a whirlwind of emotions after encountering the migrant family. As he approached the ornate front door, His hand brushed against the smooth surface of his prized watch in his pocket. The timepiece sent a jolt through him, triggering a vivid memory. He was back in the Oval Office, his father's proud smile as he presented the watch. "This isn't just a gift, Barron," Donald had said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "It's a symbol of our legacy, of the responsibility that comes with our name." Barron had felt the weight of those words, heavier than the platinum timepiece itself. Now, as he stood torn between action and hesitation, that weight seemed to multiply. The watch represented everything he had been given: privilege, security, a future laid out before him. But the image of the family's worn shoes and exhausted faces haunted him. His mother's words echoed, "Sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact." Barron's heart raced as he pulled out the watch, its polished surface a stark contrast to the family's weathered belongings. "Wait," he called, his voice barely above a whisper. The family turned, confusion flickering across their faces. "I want you to have this," Barron said, holding out the watch with trembling hands. The words tumbled out in a rush. "It's not just about the money. It's a reminder that people care, that there's hope." The family stared in disbelief. The father's eyes widened, recognizing the value of what was being offered. "No, we couldn't possibly," he began. "Please," Barron insisted, his voice growing stronger. "Use it, sell it, whatever you need. I want you to have a chance." Tears welled up in the mother's eyes as she reached out. The children looked on in awe, not fully grasping the significance but feeling its weight. As the watch changed hands, Barron felt a profound shift within himself. This wasn't about giving away an object, it was about bridging worlds. The father clasped Barron's hand, his calloused fingers warm against Barron's smooth palm. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "You've given us more than a watch. You've given us hope." As the family walked away, their steps lighter and heads held higher, Barron turned towards his home with renewed determination. He realized that refugee assistance wasn't just about necessities. It was about rebuilding shattered dreams and recognizing the humanity in every story. Barron's mind raced with possibilities, determined to help others see refugees not as statistics, but as people with stories waiting to be heard. The watch gleamed in Barron's outstretched hand, catching the last rays of the setting sun. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze as the family stared at the unexpected gift, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming emotion. Barron held his breath, his heart pounding. Would they accept it? Would they understand the depth of what he was trying to convey? The father's weathered hands trembled as he reached out, his calloused fingers brushing against the smooth surface of the timepiece. Its golden face shimmered, the intricate gears visible through the transparent back. The watch represented more than just time. It was a bridge between two worlds, a tangible symbol of compassion and shared humanity. The mother's eyes welled up with tears, her hand covering her mouth. Years of worry seemed to melt away, replaced by a glimmer of hope. The children, wide-eyed and curious, sensed the gravity of the moment, even if they couldn't fully comprehend it. Barron felt his own eyes misting over as he watched the impact of his decision unfold. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Was this too much? But as he saw the family's expressions shift from disbelief to gratitude, he knew he had made the right choice. This wasn't about charity or pity. It was about connection, about seeing the strength and dignity in this family despite their circumstances. Barron realized that in trying to help them, he had received something invaluable in return, a profound lesson in human resilience and the importance of seeing beyond labels and prejudices. The father opened his mouth to speak, his voice thick with emotion. "We cannot," he began, pride warring with desperate need in his eyes. But before he could finish, the mother placed a gentle hand on his arm. They exchanged a look, years of shared struggle passing between them in an instant. "Thank you," the father finally managed, his accent heavy but his gratitude unmistakable. "This is hope. It is kindness when we thought the world had forgotten us." In a moment that transcended language and cultural barriers, the family surged forward, enveloping Barron in a tearful embrace. As they pulled apart, Barron noticed something had changed. The family stood taller, their eyes shining with renewed determination. The youngest child looked up at Barron with wonder. "Are you an angel?" she whispered. Barron knelt down, a gentle smile on his face. "No," he said softly. "I'm just someone who cares. And there are many more like me out there. You just have to look for them." As the family gathered their belongings, Ready to continue their journey with renewed strength, Barron realized that this moment wasn't just about a watch, it was a story of connection, of seeing beyond circumstances, and the profound impact a single act of kindness could have. As the family disappeared into the bustling crowd, Barron stood rooted to the spot. The weight of the moment settled around him, bringing a clarity he had never experienced before. The watch he had given away was more than a timepiece. It was a key that had unlocked something profound within him. The city's noise faded as Barron's mind raced with possibilities. He thought about the father's calloused hands, the mother's tear-filled eyes, and the children's hopeful faces. Their story, so different from his own, had etched itself into his heart. He realized there were countless others like them, each carrying their own dreams and struggles. Barron's gaze swept across the street, taking in the faces of passers-by. How many were fighting silent battles, their voices unheard? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He had always known about the challenges faced by migrants and refugees, but now, having looked into their eyes and felt the warmth of their embrace, it was real, tangible, and impossible to ignore. As he slowly made his way home, Barron's mind whirled with ideas. The watch had been a start, but he knew it wasn't enough. What if he could do more? What if he could use his unique position, his family's name, and the media attention that followed him to shine a light on these unsung heroes? He remembered the little girl's innocent question, asking if he was an angel. The memory brought a lump to his throat. He wasn't an angel, but maybe he could be a bridge between worlds that seemed so far apart yet were deeply interconnected. As Barron approached his home, its familiar grandeur now feeling strangely out of place, he made a silent promise to himself. This wouldn't be the end. He would find ways to continue helping, to use his privilege and position to make a difference. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the doorknob. He knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be skeptics, critics who would question his motives or dismiss his efforts. But the image of that family's grateful faces, the feeling of connection he'd experienced, would fuel him forward. Stepping into his home, Barron felt different. The world around him hadn't changed, but his perspective had shifted dramatically. He saw his surroundings with new eyes, acutely aware of the stark contrast between his life and the lives of those he had just helped. The realization was both humbling and empowering. As he made his way to his room, Barron knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for the first time in his life, he felt truly ready to face them. The watch he had given away wasn't just a story of one family's hope renewed. It was the beginning of his own journey, a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about compassion, privilege, and the power of human connection. As Barron walked away, the city streets transformed. Each passerby now held a story, a struggle, and an opportunity for connection. His privilege, once a burden, became a powerful tool for change. This encounter opened his eyes, igniting a determination to use his position for good. Barron's mind raced with ideas for making a difference. He realized small acts of kindness could create ripples of change. As he headed home, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning of a challenging journey, but he was ready to face it head on. What if we all took a moment to see the struggles around us? How might our world change?